for doing this. In a moment, I'll turn things over to our host, Kenny Gorham. He is going to tell you about the world-renowned mountain bike trails of Moab and how you can level up your mountain biking experience, or how you can pick your appropriate trail as well. Kenny has been in Moab since 2017 and guiding there, so hopefully he has a lot to tell us. And please use the chat to connect with one another. You also have the Q&A section below in the toolbar. You can leave your questions. After the Kenny's presentation, that's probably around 45 minutes, we'll answer all of your questions that you might have. So without further ado, I think I said everything. Thanks again for Beta Magazine. Thanks, Kenny, for joining us. The stage is yours.
Well, thank you, Paritza, for that introduction. I would also like to thank you guys, 57 Hours, for hosting this event and inviting me on to share this info. I think it's going to be beneficial for a lot of folks. And also, I'd like to thank Beta for partnering in the event. And then, of course, to thank all the folks that are joining us here live today. So yeah, I'm Kenny. Hello, everybody. I've been a mountain bike guide here since 2017. And I've worked in the mountain biking industry since 2015. I'm the owner of Bighorn Mountain Biking, which is an outfitter, like bike rentals and a guiding service. And I've been here in Moab since 2017. And before that, I was in the environmental research field in the Florida Gulf Coast, the west coast of Florida. So just have some significant amount of outdoor experience. So the purpose of the webinar today is to highlight the important things that you need to know when planning a trip out here to Moab. There's a ton of information to sort through, and it's easy to get off track while you're researching your options online. And hopefully today we'll be able to sort out some of those details for you. So what we're going to be covering, we're going to talk about the diversity of Moab mountain biking trails, the different terrain. We're going to cover some of the famous and classic trails that you've probably heard of. And then we're going to cover a few of the ones that you might not have heard of, like the Moab brand trails. After that, we're going to look at getting around and some of the logistical challenges that we have here. And then finally, we'll finish up with a Q&A session so I can answer any of the questions that you have that I didn't cover. So the diversity of Moab mountain biking trails here. Moab's a small town out in eastern Utah, located on the western slope of the Continental Divide. The Continental Divide is right there through the state of Colorado, which is the Rocky Mountains. Right in the middle of the Colorado Plateau, the area is mostly sandstone that's eroded over millions of years by wind and water, and resulting in this unique terrain that we have here, which seems like it was created for mountain biking. There are two major rivers that flow through the area and join just south of Moab. The Green River and the Colorado have a huge part in the development of the surrounding area. And this photo is taken from Slick Rock, looking over the Colorado River. Another amazing aspect of the area is the La Salle Mountain Range. You can see it in the background here. This is a granite formation that's part of the Rocky Mountains that's pushed up through the younger sandstone layer due to tectonic pressure. It's important to understand all the geology that we have out here because you have a wide range of terrain that you'll be riding when you visit Moab. So these geologic aspects of the region make it a sporting mecca. There's high-level mountain biking, climbing, canyoneering, rafting, off-roading. Moab has some of the highest levels of difficulty and features for many of these sports. So Moab has a ton of mountain biking trails. It would take weeks to ride each system, and that quantity of riding makes it hard to pinpoint and plan and execute a trip that's an overall success. I'm going to highlight some of the best options to make it much easier for you, so you're not spending hours trying to plan your trip online. So the popular trail system that we're going to talk about on the advanced or expert side is Slick Rock, the whole enchilada, and Amasa back with Ahab. And then the beginner to intermediate systems that we're going to focus on are the Moab Brand Trails, or Bar M, and Dead Horse Point State Park, or Intrepid. So this right here is a good example. Some of these trail systems have multiple names, which doesn't make it easy whenever you're doing research online. So we'll help you clear that up today. Throughout the chat today, I'm gonna use terms like advanced, expert, intermediate. I find those to be those qualifiers to be the most widely understood verbal descriptions of the trails. However, I want to connect those with the trail ratings that are commonly used in the mountain biking world. You can see the white circle and the green circle are going to be the easiest and the easy. I kind of those correspond to the beginner stuff. And then I like to see that the intermediate kind of overlaps with some of the easy and the more difficult trails out here. A lot of feedback we get from visitors is that, our easy trails seemed like their intermediate trails. Of course, that's not true for everybody, but that's just common feedback that we get. So the more difficult blue square is going to be intermediate. And then advanced is going to be that black diamond rating. And then the expert is going to be that double black diamond. All right. So the first trail I'm going to talk about is Slick Rock. Oh. Slick Rock is arguably one of the most famous trails that we have, or that's in the world. Most people have probably heard of it. It was established over 50 years ago for moto use. And the terrain that you're riding on is nearly 100% sandstone. So the trail is defined by lines. You can see that little white line at the bottom there that's painted on the rock. The whole ride, you're riding up and over giant petrified sand dunes, which is a unique experience, obviously. And that's why it's such a draw for people. It's world famous and it's extremely unique. Let's see if I can get this.
Nice.
I'm having trouble clicking the slide over with the after that. Oh, thing we got. There you go. Okay, so the thing about Slick Rock, though, people want to ride it because it's famous and it's unique riding, but it's a very challenging trail. It's advanced due to its endurance level requirements. So it's somewhat hard to describe. People ask if it's technical. So it's not technically technical because it doesn't have super bumpy mixed rock terrain. It's all rock, so it's kind of smooth, but it has very steep, what we describe as punchy climbs and descents. You're constantly going up and going back down. There's no sustained up and down that's happening. Oh, sorry about that. Can you see my cursor when I have it on the screen?
Yes, we can.
Perfect. So it's advanced due to its endurance level requirements. And I like to describe it as type 2 fun, where, when you're riding it, it's kind of like a sufferfest. It's really hard. You're out of breath. You're constantly working. So, those of you who are wondering what type 2 fun is, that's basically like you're suffering the whole ride. And then when you finally get back to your car, you're trying to convince your friends that it was great. And then you remember it fondly, but during the time it was tough. So it being famous and people hearing about it, it's a bucket list trail. And this is going to be one of the many opinions on this presentation. I think it's far less enjoyable for most people than a lot of the trails that have been recently developed. It's just not for everyone. But if you look here, it's close to town. Moab is just off the map here. And it's a lollipop. So the main trail system here comes out to a loop and then back to the main trailhead. It's 10 miles total, or roughly 10 miles. It is a different type of 10 miles. I would say it feels like closer to 20 when it comes to the amount of effort that you're using. The reason I say that is because when folks come in or give me a call or come into the bike shop and ask me what trail to go ride, and they suggest that they want to ride Slick Rock, I tell them, how hard it is, and explain to them, that the 10 miles is a little bit longer than 10 miles that they might do after work or on the weekends. But what's nice about Slick Rock is you can come out to it and give it a go here on the practice loop. What that does is that just gives you like a little shorter loop, less commitment to know what that 10 miles is going to feel like. So moving on, we're going to talk about Captain Ahab, which is at the Amasa back trail system. It is an advanced trail, and it's relatively short. It's only around 8 miles when you loop it. And there's 2 different loop options. You can loop the entire thing, which combines upper Ahab and lower Ahab, or you can just loop the lower Ahab section. So since it's close to town, you can ride it from town. It's one of the few trails that's easy to ride from Moab, the valley. So it's a great way to test your skills before you ride a bigger, longer, more remote trail like the Enchilada, which we'll talk about next. So, the reason that that's important, it's closer to town, it's shorter. So if you bite off a little bit more than you can chew, it's a little easier to walk out of, basically. So here's the map. I have this little red dot to signify where Moab is on the map. And this road here is what you connect to next to the river. You connect to the trail system, which is out here. So you can see here, the trailhead right here has this nice little new connector that the trail group created here, which is awesome. So you can not have to ride on the road. And then you climb up this purple trail called High Masa to loop upper Ahab right here, and then continue on to lower Ahab. It is pretty common to, if you're short on time, to come out here, climb High Masa, and then just do this lower Ahab loop. Very popular little loop to do to get in some gnarly riding close to town. So this brings me to the whole enchilada. This trail is the reason why I wanted to start with the geologic information that I shared earlier. The trail, when it's completely open, starts all the way at the top of the La Salles here in one of these passes, and continues on down this rim all the way down to the river. You're starting at over 11,000 feet, and it's roughly 4,000 feet of elevation at the bottom. So the trail passes through multiple biomes, basically. You're going through multiple different climates while you're riding the trail. So this is how it looks at the top. It's like an alpine type environment. And then this is how it looks at the bottom, like a canyon. So the specs of the trail here, it's got different sections. The lowest is Porcupine Rim, which makes up about, I would say, a third, maybe a little bit more of a third of the entire trail. Above that, you have LPS, UPS, Kokopelli, Hazard, and Burrow Pass. So collectively, that is known as the whole enchilada. Most of the time it's ridden as a shuttle run, and the shuttle goes to the trail that's most appropriately ridden depending on the season. So think about the way elevation works with weather here. There's going to be snow on Porcupine Rim in the early spring, all the way up at the Burrow Pass, obviously. And that snow is going to melt off as the season continues, as you get later in the spring and into the summer. So the way it's ridden basically is you just have to figure out where the shuttles are running that time of year. This, like currently right now, I think we're at Kokopelli, and it's obviously different every single year depending on the weather. But just know that the whole enchilada is going to be what you can ride depending on the time of year that you're here. It's really good to get that information from the bike shops. You want to know where the shuttles are running. It doesn't do anybody any good for you to decide that you want to go higher than where the shuttles are running, because It's not just about the experience that you're going to have on the trail. It's about the fact that you're going to be riding in snow and ice, and you're probably going to damage our trails. So that's why we suggest that you go where the shuttles are dropping off. The shuttle starts running all the way to the top in July. That's the earliest it's going to run to the top at Burrow Pass. That's generally as long as it takes for the snow to melt all the way off the mountain there. So you have to be aware that July is one of the hottest months that we have here in Moab. So it's interesting. You're going to start up at Burrow Pass, maybe with a light jacket on, and you're going to descend down toward the elevation of Moab, which is 4,000 feet, and it's going to be close to 100 degrees. So you have to kind of plan for that. It's an interesting experience. From Burrow Pass all the way down to the river is about 27 miles. And then you have another 6 miles to get back into town after that. So the elevation profile, it's roughly 1,300 feet of climbing throughout the trail. I want to mention that first because a lot of people think it's all downhill. That's a very common thing that we hear. It's like, oh, it's all downhill, right? There's a lot of work to be done, even though this is a shuttle run. So there's about 1,300 feet of climbing, and 600 of that actually starts right off the start here. And you're above 10,000 feet. It's really hard to breathe at that elevation, especially if you're not used to it. So you start with a ton of climbing before you even drop in. But the highlight, what a lot of people like to hear, there is roughly 7,800 feet of descent throughout the trail. And the trail's mostly advanced. It does mellow out in the middle for a little bit, but it's mostly advanced riding, some expert sections. So just think about it, 27 miles, advanced, expert. If you're ready for it, it's great. If you're not, it's not great. Here, we're going to look at an example of a rider on the LPS section. It's just a good example of this expert level terrain that you're going to encounter. Yeah, so so you can see that expert level is you know, and pretty high level mountain biking there, and most of us know that the way the terrain looks on a video is usually not even nearly as gnarly as it looks in person. So the whole trail isn't that level, but you do come across different obstacles like that quite a few times on the enchilada. So now that we've talked about some of those world famous hardcore and advanced trails that most mountain bikers have heard about, those trails are amazing, but only appropriate for advanced and expert level riding. Now that we've talked about those, I want to introduce you to some other options that we have here in town. So we're going to start with the Moab Brand trails. The Moab Brand trails is a web of trails. So you have beginner, intermediate, and advanced trails all in the same trail system. The terrain, there's a variety of terrain. You have slick rock, you have clay, and you have gravel, and you have views of arches. So who rides at the Brands? Everybody rides at the Brands. Local riders, expert riders, beginner riders. The trail system has something for everybody. It's 10 miles from town, so it's reasonably convenient to go out and ride. So you can just go do a half-day ride if you want to. This photo here is one of the less technical sections of the trail, but very enjoyable. This image is a good example of the variety of terrain that makes up most of the Brands. You see this rider here is riding on some clay and gravel, and then transitions over to this little slick rock patches here. Rider's having a good time. I know because the rider is me. So here's a here's a map of the brands that I'm going to go over with you. And this is going to be another portion of some opinions from a local. Not everybody's going to have the same opinions on how to go about riding this, but this is mine. So the trailhead is going to be right here in the center. That's where most people are going to start. And beginner and intermediate riders, even advanced riders, are going to most likely start here on easy. And easy is a directional trail. So you do have to ride it from the trailhead to, what is that, the southeast. Really fun, beginner to intermediate little section of trail. Good place to get warmed up and going. After you ride that, I always suggest to come across the bike path here. You want to watch out. This black line here comes all the way into town. But when you cross the bike path, you always got to watch out for road bikers speeding by. And then come out here and ride Rusty Spur. And Rusty Spur is going to be the beginner single track. It's really good. You get warmed up on easy. You might be hitting a few obstacles, and then you come mellow out a little bit here on Rusty Spur. And then from there, you come up and ride Lazy. And Lazy is also going to be directional. So you ride it from the southeast up to the northwest here to get back to this starting intersection. And that's where you're going to make a judgment call whether or not you want to step it up a little bit. If you don't, there's tons of miles of double track like Jeep Road that has slick rock and gravel and clay terrain and obstacles. That's really fun. It's bar end loop, and it comes out here around, gets you a lot of miles. It's nice. You'll be able to get a good exercise in and not have to, to step it up if you don't want to. If you do, you can come ride North 40, which is a good, solid intermediate trail. A lot of fun. Good amount of obstacles on it. It's going to be similar to easy and lazy, but there's just going to be more frequent obstacles. It's going to be a little tougher to get up the climbs. So if you did have a good time on easy and lazy, but you're kind of on the fence, don't be afraid to go try it. All you have to do is hop off and walk some of the obstacles that you might not want to ride. You're only walking 10 feet or so. You're not having to hike a long way with your bike. So that's another good trail. I like to do this one counterclockwise or anti-clockwise. And yeah, it's a good place to really set that bar when it comes to intermediate riding. From there, if you still have some gas in the tank, you want to come ride Circle O here, which is a 100% slick rock trail. So it's a good example of what you can go experience without having to commit yourself to riding the advanced version of the slick rock terrain. So Circle O, I like to ride it this way, but this is very important to know. Circle O, this is the bottom right here. So this is a situation I describe as basically riding on credit, where you're going to descend for a while and then have to climb back out of it. You have to judge how much gas you have in the tank before you get all the way to the bottom, because 10 minutes of fun can turn into 30 minutes of climbing. So just know that. And then this stuff over here, you can see the topography lines being really close together. These are going to be the more advanced trails, real steep. And this is going to be, type 2 fun as well, I would say. It's not going to be a lot of high speed stuff, a lot of work, a lot of up and down, but you'll have a good variety of terrain and a real challenge down here. I ride these in the spring a lot of times to remind me of how bad a shape I've gotten into in the winter. All right, so next we're going to talk about Dead Horse. Dead Horse is another similar level trail system. The state park, it's at a state park, and it sits around 5,900 feet above sea level, so a little bit higher than Moab. And it's around 2,000 feet above the Colorado River, which is right here right here in this canyon. The formation isn't exactly a mesa, but because it's not isolated, but it's more like a peninsula that comes out and is surrounded by this river basin here. Dead Horse Point is, the name, there's no real, I've tried to explain it to tour guests. It never comes off as a very happy story. So it's just, being a horse back in the late 1800s and early 1900s was not easy out here in the desert. So here's an example of a good ride that one of our guests had. This is Jessica. She is out here enjoying the unique and exciting feeling of riding little slick rock terrain at Dead Horse. It was perfect for her experience level because she had ridden a bike before, but she's never ridden off-road. So we set her up on the bike. We explained the components to her and the controls and gave her some helpful trail tips. And then took her out riding, and we were able to show her different techniques. And through the day, she made a ton of progress and had a ton of fun. So here's the map of Dead Horse. You can see the highway intersects the trail system here. And then you can see with these topography lines how this geologic formation is. And the trail system's kind of in the body of the peninsula here, and then the point is going to be off the map a little bit. So we actually just opened a location, Bighorn Mountain Biking did, right here at this yurt area, which is now the mountain bike trailhead. So we're right there in the middle of the trail system. And this the riding method that I described to people is this. We usually have them start up Raven Roll because it's a good beginner trail to get you warmed up. Regardless of your riding level, of course, it's good to get your blood pumping. And then start on Big Chief here. I like to ride this clockwise as well. You can see there's tons of good overlooks that you get to experience. And although it looks this way, you're never that close to the edge. You have to, you have overlooks that are formal that you walk out to. You're not riding next to the edge. But this is going to have some intermediate, it's mostly beginner, but it's going to have some intermediate obstacles that you're going to encounter. But it's going to be the same thing. It's just the nature of Moab. You're going from rock layer to rock layer. So when you come up to those harder obstacles, if you don't want to ride them, you just step off the bike, you walk 10 feet, and you get back on the bike. It's not going to be, you're not going to be hiking. And then from there, you can connect back over to us. If you're wrapping it up, that would usually end up being an hour for most folks. Or you can continue on down Great Pyramid here to enjoy some more of the really massive, impressive overlooks. This little connector trail down to the visitor center is called Intrepid, and you're gonna come down here and maybe fill up your water at the visitor center, soak up some AC if it's the hot part of the year, and there's some more information and little hikes that you can do. Park your bike and check out the visitor center. It's definitely worth it. So from there, we usually have people come back up Raven Roll to us to give us some feedback. If they still have gas in the tank, if they still want to keep riding, we can tell them exactly what to do at that point, judging by how they felt about this loop here. Prickly Pear is a directional trail, or at least suggested directional trail, and you do that clockwise as well. That's going to be a little bit, you can see here in the rankings, it's going to be a little bit harder, a little bit more advanced. Beyond that is Whiptail and Twisted Tree, definitely the more advanced sections of trail. You actually get some overlooks of the Big Bend in the Colorado River, which is pretty popular. But again, this is some more of the advanced stuff. So you want to feel comfortable on the rest of this before you come out here and ride Whiptail and Twisted Tree. But that is the one little loop area that I do counterclockwise, and then connect back over on Crossroads there. All right, so how do we get our bikes around, and how do we get to these trails? Here is, Here is an overview map of the whole area. So Moab is down here in the bottom right corner of the map because the majority of the trails are north of town. So your options when you come to town are, renting bikes in town. Most likely you'll have a rental car, so you can rent a bike rack at additional charge and learn how to load them up and bring them up here to the trail systems. So, well, first I'll go over right here is Slick Rock. So it's really close to town, and that's why there's a huge push to ride it for a lot of people. It's just close to town. It's easy to get to. But it's still a couple hundred feet above town. It is still a challenge to pedal up to it. And then, of course, it's advanced, so it's only for some folks. The Brands is 10 miles north of town, the Moab Brand trails, which are right here. And then Dead Horse Point is right here. You can see it's not that far as a crow flies, but 2,000 feet in elevation difference and a couple river crossings would get you there. So the only way to get to it is to come north of the Brands and then come down 313 out to the park that way. So your options are to rent, when you're renting from town, you can get a bike rack that can accommodate 2 to 3 bikes, depending on the bike shop that you're getting it from. The other, for a rental car, the other things that you can do is get a tailgate pad or with a rental pickup or a vehicle that has a hitch. So it becomes a challenge. You're trying to figure out how to get to these things. You can get a shuttle also. There's shuttles that will run you up to the brands and drop you off. You could have fun riding, and then you have the 10-mile ride back to town, which is pretty fun. It's downhill on a bike path. The bike path is awesome. But, some people just don't want to add that extra time to their mountain bike experience. So here are some creative examples that I added of people trying to solve that logistical problem. It's just not easy to transport bikes. It's simple as that. If you don't have the higher level equipment, if you have a full suspension bike in one of these hanging racks, it's just not ideal. So it's just, it's hard to figure this out when you're visiting a town. And here's some other few more creative examples. On the right, you see that's just sometimes how you have to figure out. I wouldn't load a bike that way, but that is how people figure out how to get some full suspensions onto their bike racks. And then this photo on the left is I guess it was probably almost a rental customer, because it looks like they almost lost their bike on the highway, but they had a little bit of luck on their side, and that strap on that back tire held it up. And then, here's a few people that you would consider possibly winning the logistical challenge. You can see this, if you have all your gear with you, you don't have to worry about renting or anything. This guy even has a tree on his, like a live tree on his car. I'm not sure if that just grew there or if he put it there. So we tried to solve that. We started trying to come up with solutions for folks to be able to rent bikes on the trailhead. We just set up this spot up at Dead Horse Point, right at the mountain bike trailhead. It looks like a shed, but I like to call it a building. And we're able to just get you set up on bikes after you just show up in your own vehicle, whether you're there for a tour or just a rental. You just show up ready to ride, and we get you out on the trails. And then this is our Brands location, 10 miles north of town. Nothing fancy, but again, what we do is you come to us and we get you set up on bikes, and we make sure you're ready to ride, give you some trail tips if it's a rental, and send you out on the trails. And if it's a guided tour, we head out and ride with you. So what are you looking for when you come to Moab? You're looking for the best experience that you can have. And here's a quick example of one. This is some of our customers, and they're an active family who was visiting town, and they're looking for a convenient and a safe way to go out and have a fun mountain bike experience. And we sent them out, rode, showed them the different terrain at the Moab Brand trails, and they had a great time. After a couple hours, the mom and the daughter were ready to go hang out in the shade, and then the dad we took out on some more intermediate trails. So this is a video of him riding Circle O, which is that slick rock trail out of RM, the Moab Brands. The goofy commentary definitely comes with the tour for sure, for free. So the experience is built around what you're hoping for, and the trails that we bring you on are what's appropriate for your riding level. Oop. So here's another example. This is Carlos. Carlos is a past tour guest of ours as well, and he's a more intermediate rider with experience, and he's just called us to figure out what trail to ride on and requested a guide. So we basically gave him the same information that we're giving you today, and we booked it with him. So he made progress through the ride, and many experienced riders are introduced to a new level of technical riding when they visit Moab. So after doing some online research and learning some of the options, when he reached out to us and asked us a few questions, and after us learning his experience, we were able to suggest exactly what would be a perfect fit and what he should ride. So it was perfect. Carlos had figured out what options he had, and he was unsure about his correct choice, so he called us. And here's him riding out there. Double play. All right, so the important takeaways today. Don't underestimate the terrain out here in Moab. It's a little different than most places. It's unique, and that's what makes people want to ride it. So just don't underestimate the riding levels. Trust expert advice. If you call the bike shops, if you call one of us in the industry here, we usually try to learn your level of riding before we answer any questions. So we're never trying to downplay your ability. We're just trying to give you the best advice. And plan ahead, which everyone tuning in right now is doing. So proud of you. Plan ahead. It's good to know what you're getting into. It makes your experience a lot more enjoyable when you're not searching for the answers while you're on your trip out here. And understand the logistics. It's easy to focus on what bike you're going to rent and what trail you're going to ride. You can spend a lot of time picking those two things out. So just don't forget there's some other aspects of your trip. You have to figure out how to get to the trails out here. So what's a successful Moab experience? You want to have a good time. Most people spend a lot of time and money coming to a place like this. So that's the goal. You want to have a good time, and you want to stay safe while you're here. This is the desert is a somewhat dangerous place. So you want to be wise to the hazards, and you want to leave the desert the same way that you found it. And on that note, we have a really cool program here. Do it like a local. It's kind of goes down the same road as respect the desert, stay on the trail. That's probably one of the most widely expressed tips from us locals. You have to stay on the trail. The desert's fragile. There's a lot of different plants that take a long time to grow and that are delicate. You don't want to trample them. You want to pack it out. You shouldn't peel a banana and throw a banana off into the woods anywhere, but you certainly shouldn't do it here. I see people doing that quite a bit. Those types of things don't rot away like you think they would. Same thing with like orange peels. You want to leave no trace. You don't want to leave that stuff out there. You want to make sure you don't leave any garbage. You want to understand trail etiquette while you're riding here. If somebody's coming up a climb and you're descending on a two-way trail, you want to stop your bike and put 1 foot off the trail, lean over and let them pass you. It's really hard to start back up when you're climbing, so the climber has the right of way. And most of the trail systems out here have that information at their trailhead. So take the time to read it. We really appreciate it when you do. And bring plenty of water. That's one of the main safety aspects out here. If you're used to riding with a bottle of water, 1 bottle of water, 1 liter of water, you might want to up that when you're here. You do want to up that. And that goes along with trusting the advice of the locals. If they tell you that you need 3 liters of water, you definitely need 3 liters of water. It doesn't equate to anything that you're used to if you're not from a desert environment. And support local trails by buying maps or donating. At most of the retail stores, the bike shop / retail stores here, they have maps that you can purchase. And they're the maps that we actually used in the presentation today that are from the Moab Trail Mix. So thanks to them for letting us use those maps, and also support the trails by going into one of those retail store bike shops and buying a trail map to support the local trail system here. And I threw these 2 little links on. The Moab Trail has Moab Trail Alliance has a page that you can donate. There's like a little donate link if you want to support the trails before you come out here, or maybe after you come out here. And do it like a local is that campaign that we have that kind of outlines a lot of the good information to know, some of what I covered today. And here's a little pricing details of what we offer at Bighorn Mountain Biking. Starting at $70 with your own bike and going up to $140 per person, depending on what bike you choose with us. And Dead Horse Point's a good option there. And then the intermediate level tour, the Moab Brand Trails, because there's just a wider range of riding out there, similar pricing. And then the advanced full day tour at Mag 7, which includes a shuttle. All right.
All right, Kenny, thanks a lot for this great presentation. I'll just shout out to Beta Magazine one more time. Thanks for promoting this, but thank you for sharing this. And look, if anyone wants to join you on a trip, we'll share the link to your adventures, and we'll also share the link in the emails. For everyone, please know this is being recorded, and it will be made available on YouTube. You'll all get the email with the recording in the next few days. And we'll also make sure that the links to donation to the local community is included in the subsequent emails, Ken. I think that's a great addition to the webinar as well. So we have a few questions, so let's just get on with them and finish up. I will actually ask you, Kenny, I think we discussed that before the start of the show, but we have a question about timing. So is it too hot to come in August?
Yeah, it is hot in August. It is not too hot. You just have to plan your trip accordingly. The mornings here in the desert, the physics of it are the rocks have a lot of capacity to hold that cold night air. So the mornings tend to be nice and cool for quite a bit, pretty deep into the morning. So you can still come out here and get plenty of riding in. You just have to know how to do it. So get out on the trails right at sunrise, and you can usually ride close up to lunch pretty comfortably. You just need to plan some of the non-active activities that you're doing here in town in the afternoon. Going to hang out by the river, going on the river, hanging out at the creek, are things that you can do in the afternoon. But you can ride in the morning pretty comfortably. And then, specifically to the whole enchilada, you can only ride it in the summer because that's when the snow's melted off the top. You just have to know that you have to carry water. You have to carry plenty of water. Having too much water is totally fine. Just not having enough is the problem.
Yeah, and we have Michelle asking a follow-up question to this. So how about June, like in the 2 to 6 p.m. hours? I guess she has a trip scheduled. So
yeah,
I guess you can tell us, are there options that are good and it's not too hot?
Yeah, late June is getting a little uncomfortable usually in the afternoon. It's all doable if you're careful. If you're conditioned for it, if you're from the southwestern United States, you're used to it. But if you're not, you just have to know that pre-hydrating is very important. You want to stay hydrated the whole time you're here. I would in late June, I would probably try not to schedule any rides in the afternoon. For instance, we try to schedule all of our tours in the morning and have them done by lunch by late June. And then in July, we only do early morning stuff. So as you're in that transition period, you can still come out here. You're still going to have a great time. There's plenty of stuff to do. Just plan like you would in the summer if you're coming in late June to do your active stuff in the morning, and your more relaxing or water related activities in the afternoon.
Nice. And what are the best months to come?
Well, this is becoming less and less of a secret, I think, because these busy times are getting very, very busy. In the spring, the best times are going to be probably mid-April to mid-May. It's going to be the best. if you come earlier than that, you could certainly have, a late winter storm come through in early April. That's happened. And then in the fall, probably mid-September to mid-October. But the same thing goes with that section of time. We can have an early winter event happen in early October. If it doesn't happen, early October is the best time to come here. But it's just hard to gamble, when you're planning a trip from far away. So it's safer to do mid-September through the end of the month, if to try to avoid the enchilada, for instance, has been shut down in early October because of an early winter storm. So if you're coming to ride that, you want to probably do it in September.
And can you tell us, we have a question about the whole enchilada. I think you mentioned in the presentation, but I know you told me previously that this experience is more often like bad or hard on people than good, because they overestimate maybe their skill level, or they just want to do it and no matter the cost. Can you tell us a bit more about how to estimate if you're ready for something like that? Like how much experience is needed, maybe not to just do it, but to enjoy the whole enchilada?
Right. Okay. Yeah, which are two very different things. So enjoying the whole enchilada would require, I would say, a minimum of maybe 5 years of riding every weekend. Riding once a week, being a mountain biker, being somebody who rides quite a bit, making progress. Having modern equipment is very important. You want to have a bike that's, I would say, 5 years old or newer. And the technical riding is really what gets people. We've had tour guests when I first moved here that described themselves as expert downhill riders. And that is that's an interesting type of mountain biking when you're doing that lift access stuff and you're doing giant jumps and steep downhill. That doesn't necessarily transfer into the type of riding that you're doing on the enchilada. There's a lot of fitness aspects to riding trails here in Moab. Just because of it's a shuttle, it doesn't at all mean that it's going to be a lot of downhill riding. You're doing, like I said, 7,800 feet of descending, but it is a battle. You're working the entire time. So having a high level of endurance is probably one of the most important things. And then having some technical experience is going to be key. And that's why I wanted to talk about Amasa back and Ahab. For you to know whether or not you're going to have a great time before you go ride, you should go ride something like Ahab. It's shorter. It's similar level of terrain. If it's got some really high level technical descending. And if you ride a couple miles of that and you didn't have wasn't a piece of cake for you, you definitely don't want to ride 27 miles. And you just basically you want to keep practicing, keep getting better, and then come back and do it. It's never the best way to do it isn't to come and suffer the whole time. The best way to do it is to know what you're getting into and being prepared. And that's obviously it's good for you and it's good for us as locals. We don't want to put our search and rescue people in bad situations. You want to pick wisely.
Great answer, Kenny. And I, being a climber, I can relate to like a lot of the guides who get calls from clients, and then after a conversation, they decide on a completely different route that's maybe more appropriate to the level. But I think the important element is this also more fun. Maybe sometimes you just want to have a good time instead of suffering and the whole day, even if you succeed. But of course, it depends on the person as well. And we have a question from John, who said he's ridden Palo Duro in Texas multiple times and want to ask how to compare the terrain in Moab with that, and can that prepare him to, can the Palo Duro tour prepare him to ride in Moab? If you're familiar with that one.
I'm not. I've been through Texas a lot of times, road tripping back to Florida, where I'm from, but I have not had a lot of experience in the Texas riding. I'm assuming it's in West Texas, so that rocky terrain. I would assume if it's rated advanced or expert black diamond rocky terrain, that should get you pretty prepared. The West Texas riding just being assuming it's pretty rocky stuff. That's the technical riding that we're talking about. That's stuff that you're constantly encountering, where you're active the whole time. The bike's getting rattled, you're getting somewhat rattled, and you're trying to find that flow. That's the characteristic of the Moab riding.
All right. Well, maybe you can stop and ride the Polo Duro next time when you're in Texas.
Definitely.
Yeah. And now Andy is asking. He said he's ridden both hardtail and full suspension in Moab. So what's your suggestion for the best type of bike, amount of suspension, dropper post or not, what to do? What do you suggest?
Good question. So the best bike is going to be, and this does change as bike technology changes, like and the market preferences change a bit. I would say the full suspension bike with about 150 millimeters of travel front and back is the ideal bike for Moab. In the past couple of years, the travel has gone a little lower, like down to 130 when it comes to like capable trail bikes, but that's because the head tube angles have gotten slacker. The reason is you still have a ton of climbing to do out here. You don't want to have some sled that you just hold on to the handlebars on the way down. Because it's going to be hard to get to the top of the trail. So you want to have something that's like an all-around bike, and that's that 150 trail bike, in my opinion. Like I said, I've gone to a 130 travel bike recently, had a lot of fun with it. Think it's great just because it's slacker now. There's slacker geometry, longer and shorter travel. It just helps you climb. You don't want too much out here because it really affects your ability to get up these technical climbs. I also like to ride hardtails just because it's fun to really test your ability to pick the right line. And out here in Moab on a hardtail, if you're riding intermediate to advanced stuff, you have to pick the right line. So that's fun to do, but certainly not ideal.
Well, Andy and John who asked the question, I hope we answered it for you. Let us know if you want more details. We have a question about e-bikes. Is that allowed on trails, and how does that work in Moab?
E-bikes are allowed on very few of the formal mountain biking single track here in town. I think just generally speaking, that part of the industry is still evolving. It's currently evolving. So like I mentioned, Slick Rock, like I mentioned in the presentation, Slick Rock is originally a motorcycle trail. And Slick Rock is really hard to ride because it's high endurance. Slick Rock is a blast to ride on e-bikes. It is a ton of fun. But with that high level riding, steep up, steep down, somebody on an e-bike might not want to ride that level. The option is Dead Horse Point, which we talked about, that has that beginner and intermediate single track. Because it's a state park, it allows e-bikes. That's probably, by far the most popular place to go ride e-bikes. It's a lot of fun. I think whether or not it happens or not, whether the other trails are on BLM land, and I don't know, the exact details about how they develop, changing their management plans. I don't think it happens super often, but I think they're looking into trying to figure out what trails they're going to eventually open to e-bikes. That might never happen. That might happen to a lot of trails. That's still open. The industry is evolving a bit. E-bikes are a ton of fun. E-bikes get people out riding who otherwise might not want to go out because of some fitness challenges or some health concerns. I love the idea of more people getting out to ride. as long as they're doing it responsibly. And, currently here in Moab, the beginner intermediate stuff is definitely dead horse. It's a blast. And then the intermediate to advanced option is slick rock.
All right, well, thanks for the answer. I will have one more question of my own, where I want to ask you how to decide whether to hire a guide or try to do stuff on your own. Let's say if I'm a beginner mountain biker, I would probably immediately want to hire a guide. But can you tell us a bit more about that, and at what level of experience do you still consider hiring guides? So how would you go about that decision process?
Well, we have every level of rider reach out to us for guided products that we offer. One scenario is going to be a family that may be limited on time, who doesn't want to try to solve all those logistical challenges by renting a bike and all that. And they know that if they just hire a guide, that they'll show up at the trails and be set up on the bike and not have to worry about navigating the trail system, have somebody there tell them some riding tips and get them through the experience. Some just want that time saver. Some want to have somebody has some medical training with them while they're riding. No one plans on having an issue happen, but it makes a lot of people feel better to have somebody who knows the terrain and has some medical training for them. Another common situation is maybe a younger person is here with their mom and dad, and they've probably tried to talk their mom and dad into mountain biking, but that's not going to happen. And they want to have somebody take them out and go ride and make sure it's safe. Us as locals, we really like the folks that respect the desert. This is another situation. Some people really respect the desert. They understand that this is an environment where things can go bad very quickly, basically. So they want to have a guide with them to make sure that it's going to be a safe and fun time for them. And I guess an additional situation too is you have those folks that just might be mountain bikers and they're out on this part of the country and they don't want to go riding alone. It's pretty fun. You're an advanced expert rider. Maybe you couldn't talk any of your friends or your other mountain bike partners to come out and ride, and you want to ride with somebody who knows the terrain and is fun to hang out with, and that's super common as well.
Nice. Well, it all makes sense, and thanks for clarifying all of this. We have one more question to finish, or maybe two more questions to finish this off. So Ebony is asking about whether her son is almost 4 and he just learned to pedal, and any tips on getting him into mountain biking or starting mountain biking with a small kid. So what is the age limits? Maybe you can tell a bit more about, for the parents out there, how can they go about starting to mountain bike or maybe bike with their kids and so on.
Well, I love that people introduce this type of activity to young kids. I think it's life-changing to learn what's out there and learn the different unique sporting opportunities that there are in the world. Of course, a lot of people grow up maybe playing soccer or baseball. I didn't learn about mountain biking until I was in my 20s. So I really appreciate when people are showing their kids these awesome activities. But there's a ton of different sayings about, riding a bike. You never forget how to ride a bike, those types of things. If you're spending time in the neighborhood pedaling your bike around, and when I was a kid, I did build little jumps and get used to that, and it's definitely transferred over into my mountain biking style, basically. But I don't have kids of my own. I've never taught a young one to ride a bike, so I don't have any advice there. But I would say just those types of things with families or with your kid, where you're just taking them on a camping trip and bringing a bike with you. That is it. Just bring the bike with you. Even if you're not sure about, what type of terrain might be, in that area that you're traveling. It's just nice to have a bike. It's such a good way to go see and experience different places. Finding local trails is somewhat fun when you get to a new place and going to ride it and experiencing those different terrain. And that never ends when you're a mountain biker. That you just find more and more places to go check out as you develop in the sport. And you can tell when you're riding with some of the elite riders who started when they were 4. It's impressive. So just keep motivating. And usually too, as you get into middle school age kids, this is definitely not something we had in Florida. Mountain bike teams are awesome. What a fun sport to participate in when you're in school. If you're starting them, that young, getting them comfortable riding a bike and then riding a bike off road, that's going to be a really fun sport for that kid to participate in.
Nice. And what are the age limits for your guided tours?
We've never taken anybody out. I would have to take a look at my permit if I had somebody request. I mean, I think the youngest we've had since I've even been open is like 10, but I think the limit might be somewhere around 8. But that limit is also because of our bike sizes. The smallest bike we have is a 20-inch, which is definitely bigger than, significantly bigger than one of those. I forget, what are those bikes called where you just pedal with your feet on the ground, striders or whatever. Significantly bigger than that. You have to know how to use hand brakes, basically. That's the limit, is the handbrake thing. A kid that's able to reach the handbrakes and put that together. But I think there is a permitted limit. I think it's around 8. I would have to look into it.
Cool. And we have a question from Dan about cell phone reception on the trails, specifically for GPS. So
most of the apps that you have, or Garmin's that people have with them are I don't know the technology that well, but I know that the satellite connection is reasonably good when you're out riding, but the cell connection is not. So you won't have any cell service, but your GPS location is still active because of satellites. So out here, it's typically pretty good. You might have little blips in canyons that you're in, but Strava, different GPS apps that you use to navigate bike packing trips work pretty well. Cell services, I thought I had an idea of how it worked until this season, and it comes and goes with the wind. And a lot of it, I think, has to do with the amount of people that are in town more than anything. I think we're having a bandwidth problem here in Moab where, you can basically tell when Arches National Park closes, because then you can't use your cell phone anymore because everyone's jumping on Google to try to figure out what to do for the day.
All right, Kenny. Well, I think those are all of the questions that we had from the audience. At the end, we had 65 people participating, which was awesome. And I don't know if you have anything else you want to share with everyone. Any last words?
No, just thank you. I appreciate you guys 57 hours putting it together to help us share this information and beta for partnering, and of course all the people that joined in to learn more about it. I appreciate that a lot.
Nice. We'll share the comments with you. We have some people telling us it was an awesome presentation and they loved it, and I loved it personally as well. I only mountain biked like a few times, with 2 times I think, with the guide actually, and if I'll be passing in Moab anytime soon, I'll be sure to take one of your easier trails and just have fun for the day. And I'll leave the hard stuff for the pros, so to speak.
Well, we'd love to take you out.
All right. Well, Kenny, thanks a lot. If you want to join Kenny on his bike rides, you have the link and you can book him on 57 hours or find the Bighorn mountain biking. You can also rent bikes from him. I want to thank one more time to the Beta Magazine for co-promoting this. We'll pick the winner of their Active Pass membership, and you'll be notified by email. The recording of this webinar will be made available on YouTube, I think, in the next 2 days. You'll all get notified by email. Thanks a lot, and we join us next week on the Iceland Hidden Trails of on hiking the hidden trails of Iceland webinar. Same time, Thursday, 1 p.m. Eastern. Thanks a lot. Thanks, Kenny.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
See ya.